going to be going over the electrical system for our completed drawer build here that we have behind me. We're really excited to finally have this done, but before we get into this, we have a few big announcements that we want to let you guys know. First of all, in the last video, we told you guys that we were going to Africa. Well, we finally did it. We went to Africa. We were there for about 3 weeks in Uganda. We were exploring the place. We met all kinds of new people, and we cannot wait to share the stories that we have to tell you. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't really have anything to show for it because I have, at the moment, over 40 hours of footage that I need to go through. I also have over 9,000 photos that I have to edit. There's a lot of work that goes into making a travel series, and I'm kind of just a one-man army. And this is not really a story that I can just slap together on YouTube and send it on its way. It's a little bit more delicate. We're getting into more emotional topics, I think, and it's just a story that requires a more fine touch. That being said, we are also trying to work on creating more long-form content. So this series isn't really going to be your typical 15-minute, 10-minute video. We're going to be doing full-length episodes, and it's going to be pretty big. We have a lot in store. We're anticipating maybe 5 to 6 episodes, depending on what happens. I'm still kind of going through footage, trying to figure out how I want to tell this story. But for the most part, that is about what you can expect. As for the time frame, it kind of will get ready when it's ready. I'm anticipating maybe December, possibly January. Just kind of depends on where I'm at with the workload and how our channel is going to be doing at that time, which kind of leads us into the next bit of news that we have for you guys. Recently, just yesterday morning, we passed 1,000 subscribers here on this YouTube channel, which is really exciting to see as our channel starts to grow and accelerate. Basically, this means that YouTube allows us to monetize our content and generate revenue. However, we're still missing one small key element in this, and that is YouTube requires us to have 4,000 watch hours on our channel, and we currently have about 3/4 of that at the moment. It's no secret that YouTube doesn't really pay out that great to the content creators that are just starting. So Taylor and I have talked long and hard about how we want to treat this and what we want to do, and we've determined that at the moment, we're not really going to be monetizing our YouTube channel. Instead, we have decided to get together, combine our heads, come up with something new, and we have determined that we are going to be launching our very own Patreon page.
Most of the stuff on the Patreon right now is going to be early access, so you get to see the YouTube videos about a week before they go up onto YouTube. And then there's going to be extra pictures that get posted there, as well as behind the scenes cuts that won't be showing up on YouTube at all.
We're really excited for this. This has kind of been a large step that we've been wanting to take for a while now, and I've kind of been seeing it get closer and closer. And I really wasn't expecting it to happen right now, even though it is, and I kind of saw this a week ago. It's just kind of seeing our channel grow and where we're going. It's all just very exciting as we continue to grow our community. That being said, it does kind of turn YouTube into a path of generating revenue for us in what we do. Because at the moment, everything we do, everything you see behind me, comes from everything else I do outside of YouTube. And it would be nice to get to a point where I can actually get the channel to fund the things we do and share them with you guys. And I think it's a great opportunity. As we continue making content here on YouTube and growing our community, it's becoming more and more likely than reasonable that we could turn this into a potential revenue stream to continue creating content for you guys, because it's something we really enjoy doing and it's something you guys really enjoy watching. So we're really excited for that opportunity and we look forward to it. And on top of all of that, you will get an exclusive behind the scenes look at all the projects we are working on. And that is going to be very inclusive to our Africa travel series, because we have so much that we could potentially tell from our time there. And it's just not going to be possible for us to share all of it in our travel series. So it's kind of in our interest that we want to produce this series. We also want to make it so that our Patreons have early access to this series, as well as access to a lot of behind the scenes content that just isn't going to be able to make it into the final cut of the series. And we want this to be the golden standard for all of our future content to come. So if you guys enjoy our channel and enjoy our content and what we do, head on over to Patreon, where you can go ahead and sign up and help us out. Every little bit helps, and we are more than happy to continue going down this path. So this is our jackery that you guys have known on our channel here for the past few years. We've been rolling with this ever since we had our Xterra build, and for the most part, it's done a pretty good job. It has a few shortcomings, and it has a few pros that are for it. But ultimately, we ended up growing out of it, and we needed to expand into something a little bit more customized towards us. The nice thing about the jackery, however, is that it is a very portable system. You could take it in and out of the car as you see fit. You could use it for other applications, emergency power when the power goes out at home, and a bunch of other things that you could think of. And it's rated up to 1,000 watts. However, for us, the problem arose in the power consumption. We ended up sucking down more power than this is able to crank out. And on top of that, we also ran into issues with charging it as well. And ultimately, it just wasn't enough. We could get the fridge to run for maybe a day, charge some drone batteries, a MacBook, and if we got good sun the next day or we drove all day, we could charge it top to bottom from the alternator. But ultimately, it just wasn't enough. It was always a ticking clock of just slowly charging down, and we're always able to just bump it up as we charged it ever so slowly from either the cigarette lighter or my hack of a wiring job on the Xterra to bypass cigarette lighters, because that was an entire mess altogether. But ultimately, this was just a headache that needed to go away. And so when we got the 4Runner, I determined that it was time to finally build a professional build. And what we ended up with behind me, getting rid of this, turned out to be pretty cool. All right, so nature has determined that I am not going to be making a video outside of the car, so we're gonna be trying to do it inside the car. So really the only way I could break down this electrical build for you guys is if we broke it down into different small little sections. So first, let's talk about the battery. The battery we chose to go with is a 100 amp hour lithium Battleborn battery. It does have a built-in heat pad, and I'll explain that in just a second. Now, the reason we go with a lithium battery is because I want to get the maximum amount of battery that I can get. Now, we are limited to 100 amp hours, but when it comes to lithium batteries, we're actually able to discharge that battery down to about 20% before damage starts happening. And to put that in perspective for you, your normal acid car battery is only going to be able to go down to about 80, 70, 60% before permanent damage starts happening to it, which is why it's very easy to kill car batteries when you're trying to crank the engine all the time. Especially in older vehicles, you tend to go through batteries a lot faster. Now, the alternative to that is AGM batteries. They are a lot cheaper than lithium batteries, but the downside is that you can only go down to about 50% discharge before permanent damage starts happening to it. Now, it is true with all batteries that permanent damage is always going to occur to them. Even if it just sits on a shelf, it'll always just start getting damaged. And that's just the nature of batteries, unfortunately. So for us, we decided to go with a lithium battery because it gives us the most amount of battery to work with and allows us to push it to limits that we otherwise wouldn't be comfortable with. Now, the caveat to using lithium batteries like this is that they're actually very sensitive to temperature change. And what I mean by that is that usually when it gets too cold, down towards freezing, voltage tends to drop, and you usually run into issues because it's not able to power things, and you kind of have to compensate for that in different ways. One of the ways people do this is with heating pads. Now, you can do this with any other battery. Get on Amazon and buy a heating pad and wrap it around that battery to keep it nice and warm, especially in those winter months when it's just way too cold for that battery to even be operating. If you guys ever owned a drone and you took it camping with you in the winter and you woke up one morning and you wanted to fly it and you realized the battery just didn't want to work, the drone didn't want to turn on, those are lithium batteries, and they just don't like cold weather. They have to be warm and they have to stay warm. Now, Battleborn has brilliantly thought about this, and they've built in a heat pad into their battery. And they offer batteries that don't have these in them, but I decided to get the one that does. I had two options available to me when I was contemplating building this build. I could wire that battery heater into the TVMS Rogue, which is our control unit that manages all accessories, or I could wire it into a physical switch. I ultimately opted to wire it into a physical switch just because it's easy to work with, and the TVMS Rogue may not always be functional when I need that feature. So with our battery picked, the next thing we needed to do was come up with a way to power all of our accessories. Now, the reality is when you're coming up with an electrical build, You don't really need to go into spending thousands of dollars on these really fancy systems that have Bluetooth or, you know, super uber ultra power management that lets you manage everything on your cell phone. You don't necessarily need that. It is nice to have, but you don't necessarily have to have it. You could easily get away with just finding a battery charger, and then wiring up all your accessories off of that, and then maybe plug in a little voltage display that tells you where the battery voltage is at, so you know you're not gonna kill it, basically. However, for our build, we opted to install the Redarc power management system. Now, this system is a complete full circle power management system. It has a battery sensor that keeps temperature of the battery so it knows how to regulate voltage. It also keeps track of power consumption, whether it is solar power, shore power, or even off the alternator, which is all managed by the Power Manager 30. And the nice thing about this system is that everything talks to each other. So for our setup, we are actually running with the Power Manager 30, which manages charging the battery one of three ways, which is either shore power, solar, or alternator. And then we have the TVMS Rogue, which basically manages all of the accessories that we have plugged into it, so it's able to turn things off and on, and we can do so from our phone via Bluetooth. Now, the other nice thing about this system is the Red Vision display, which is the display that we have on the front of our drawer build. This tells us where the battery power is, and it tells us everything we need to know about our battery, and that is all easily accessible from the Bluetooth app as well. Last but not least, we also have the inverter. We've decided to go with a small 400 watt inverter. We're not powering microwaves. We don't really need that much for what we're doing. Ultimately, we just have a few drone batteries, MacBooks, iPads, phones, basics to charge. There's not a lot that goes into it when it comes to 120 power. So when I originally built the drawer system, I came up with the design of what I wanted the drawers to look like. And my notes were that I needed to maximize the amount of available storage space, but I also needed to tuck everything electrical in as small an area as it could be so I could maximize that storage space. But all the electrical had to be in the rear storage. So those were the rules that I established for myself when I was building this system. And I eventually came to a design that I really, really liked, which is what you guys see back here. So all the electrical management stuff is actually tucked on the side of the drawer by the wheel well, and is mounted vertically. The battery mounts tucked in the back, which is accessed by folding down the back seat here. And then the inverter is just the same as well. And then we have all the wiring harnesses that connect up everything together. Now, you guys can pause the video right here and take a look at this wiring harness and try and figure it out yourself, or you could go over to our Patreon page where I have so graciously designed a wiring schematic and drew it out for you guys so you can actually take a look at it and see how it is broken down, what terminals go to what on the bus bars, and how everything is just powered up together. It's not the most professional drawing. It's my first electrical schematic, so, you know, give me a break a little bit, but it is enough to know what's going on there. So go check that on our Patreon, link right here somewhere. Yeah, wherever, I don't know. That basically covered our electrical build for inside of the cab. Now, the real trick was figuring out how to get power from the outside of the vehicle to the inside of the vehicle, because everything is within the cab here. So what I ultimately ended up doing was running a wire harness of a couple different wires between the cab, down the door, under the floor, underneath the door actually right here, and then in through the firewall under here, and then into the engine bay where it connects up to the main battery. So under the engine, we have everything connecting up to a custom-made plate made by some company that specializes in doing things like this. I can't remember what their names are, but we have a 100 amp breaker, which everything ties into, which is highly recommended to have just in case things go crazy and you don't want to burn your vehicle to the ground. Past that, everything connects up to a 12 volt fused bus bar, and although we're not actually using that at the moment, that will be there for future expansion for things like powering a winch or a ham radio or anything else we can really think of, like LED light bars and the like. So that is the basic rundown of the electrical build of this 4Runner. In a ways, it's kind of complicated, but in other ways, it's actually very, very simple. Just having a basic knowledge of electronics and how they work is really all you need to go into this project. Just know what's positive and know what's negative, and you can plug everything together like it's a Lego set. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This isn't really how I wanted to be making it, but I think this will work. It is kind of windy and sporadically raining outside. We're actually really excited for this week because we're actually going to be going to put all of our gear to the test this week. We're going to be doing about a 3-day run, and I'll probably make a vlog out of this and see just how things go. I have every expectation that something will inevitably go wrong, and we might have to even cancel our trip and come back so I can make necessary repairs. But I have high hopes. I have very high confidence in this system. There's just always those little thoughts in the back of my head that, you know, kind of nag at me. But, you know, you never really get to know what your gear is capable of doing until you get out and test it. So that's what we're going to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Head over to our Patreon where you can subscribe, check out the schematics. We have 2 tiers at the moment. We have a $5 a month tier and a $10 a month tier. We'll probably build out a few others as we start figuring out what we want to do with it. And yeah, we're really excited to be doing this stuff. That's all I got for you guys today. Hope this was useful to you. It was a neat little breakdown, probably a little bit lengthy and boring, but, you know, kind of had to cover some of this stuff. And wow, there's lightning outside. So I think I'm gonna go get some dinner right now. I hope you guys have a great one. Bye.